The alien dropship hummed ominously as it descended through the thick atmosphere of Earth, its metallic hull gleaming against the filtered sunlight. Commander Vectelos stood at the viewing port, arms crossed, his mandibles twitching with disdain. Below him stretched an unbroken sea of green, the last jungle of a forgotten planet. Primitive, Vec scoffed, his voice resonating with a metallic growl. This is what the galaxy fears. A tangle of weeds? Behind him, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Krell, hesitated. With respect, Commander, intelligence reports suggest the jungle has anomalies. Missing scout teams? Unexplained phenomena. Vec turned sharply, his predatory eyes narrowing. Superstition. We will carve through this wilderness as we have every other world. Let us remind these Earth relics what true power looks like. The dropship shuddered as it landed in a clearing carved by orbital bombardment. The ground below was scorched and smoking, yet the jungle seemed to pulse with life, its edges creeping back even as the flames smoldered. Vec and his squad, a dozen heavily armed soldiers clad in advanced combat armor, disembarked, their boots crunching against the charred soil. The soldiers spread out, their high-tech scanners sweeping for movement. Despite their bravado, tension lingered in the air. The jungle loomed like a living entity, its massive trees reaching skyward, their twisted branches shrouding the land in shadow. Stay alert, Vec barked. The enemy is not the jungle. It is your own cowardice. The squad moved deeper into the foliage, their flamethrowers carving paths through dense vegetation. Yet, for every vine they burned, another seemed to grow in its place. Krell frowned as his scanner pinged. Commander, Krell said, his voice uneasy. The jungle's regrowth rate is abnormal. It's almost as if it's resisting us. Nonsense, Vec snapped, slashing a hanging vine with his plasma blade. Resistance implies intent. This is nature, nothing more. But nature, it seemed, had its own plans. Ahead, one of the soldiers paused, his weapon raised. Movement 30 meters out, he reported. The squad froze, weapons trained. The jungle held its breath. A moment later, the underbrush exploded. A massive, snake-like creature surged forward, its scales glinting with iridescent hues. Its maw opened, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. The soldier fired, his plasma bolts striking the creature's hide, but it was too late. The serpent coiled around him with shocking speed, dragging him into the shadows. His screams echoed, then abruptly ceased. Form up! Vec roared, his weapon blazing as he fired into the darkness. The soldiers regrouped, their confidence shaken. Krell's voice trembled. That wasn't in the intel. No more excuses, Vec growled. Push forward. Show no mercy to whatever abominations inhabit this cursed place. As they advanced, the jungle seemed to close in around them. The air grew thick with humidity, the cries of unseen creatures echoing like taunts. The squad's flamethrowers sputtered, their fuel reserves dwindling. In a concealed perch high above, Iris Kane watched through her binoculars, a faint smile tugging at her lips. The aliens were predictable, arrogant, overconfident, and completely unprepared for what lay ahead. She activated her communicator, her voice a whisper. Phase 1 complete, she said. Let them sweat a little longer before we strike again. The response crackled through. Understood, Dr. Kane. Moving to Phase 2. Iris adjusted her position, her camouflage suit blending seamlessly with the surrounding foliage. Her gaze lingered on the clearing where the aliens regrouped, their numbers already diminished. Back on the jungle floor, Vec examined the surroundings with growing irritation. His helmet's thermal sensors showed flickering heat signatures, but nothing solid. This jungle is playing tricks on us, a soldier muttered, his voice edged with panic. It's not the jungle, Krell said grimly, pointing to a patch of ground. The soil was unnaturally disturbed, as if something had burrowed beneath it. It's them. No sooner had he spoken than the ground erupted. From below, a swarm of small, insect-like creatures emerged, their chitinous bodies gleaming in the dim light. They moved in coordinated waves, overwhelming the nearest soldier before he could fire. Defensive formation! Vex shouted, his plasma blades slicing through the swarm. The squad retaliated, their weapons lighting up the jungle in bursts of green and blue. Yet, for every insect they killed, more seemed to emerge. The soldiers fell back, their formation breaking as fear overtook discipline. Commander, we need to retreat, Krell urged, firing wildly into the swarm. Vex's eyes blazed with fury. We retreat for no one. Hold your ground. But the jungle had other plans. A vine lashed out, wrapping around a soldier's leg and yanking him into the canopy. Another soldier vanished into the underbrush, his cries cut short. Above, Iris nodded in satisfaction. The jungle was doing its job, softening the enemy's resolve. She activated another trap, a hidden cluster of explosive spores. Below, Krell's scanner beeped in warning. Commander, there's something. The ground erupted in a fiery blast, sending alien soldiers flying. When the smoke cleared, only half the squad remained, their once pristine armor scorched and cracked. Vec pulled himself to his feet, his mandibles twitching in rage. This is no battle. This is cowardice! From the shadows, a voice echoed, cold and defiant. Cowardice? Or strategy? Vex spun, his weapon aimed, but there was no one to shoot. The jungle seemed to laugh, its unseen forces closing in. Krell approached cautiously. Commander, that voice, it was human. Impossible, Vex growled. Humans abandoned this planet centuries ago. Not all of them, Krell said, his tone heavy with realization. Vex's eyes narrowed. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. He turned his gaze to the endless jungle ahead, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Press forward, he ordered, his voice firm but strained. We will find them, and we will end this. But even as he spoke, the jungle seemed to whisper back, a chilling reminder that they were no longer the hunters, they were the prey. The alien squad regrouped in a small clearing, their numbers halved, and morale battered. Smoke rose from scorched underbrush, and the air was thick with the stench of burnt vegetation and singed armor. Commander Vectalos paced, his claws clicking against his gauntlet. The confidence he had projected earlier now seemed forced, his frustration simmering beneath a veneer of control. Lieutenant Krell, helmet off to reveal a pale, sweat-slicked face, crouched over a fallen soldier. They're not just defending themselves, Krell muttered as he studied the ragged wounds. They're toying with us. Enough, Beck growled, looming over him. We are not prey. We are soldiers. Whatever this jungle hides, we will crush it. Krell stood, hesitation flickering in his gaze. Commander, it's clear this is no ordinary resistance. Someone is orchestrating this. Vex's mandibles twitched. Let them try. They'll learn the cost of defying the order. But the jungle didn't wait for orders. Without warning, the ground beneath them shifted, a subtle tremor at first, then a violent quake. Roots erupted like serpents, twisting through the clearing, forcing the squad to scatter. One soldier was caught mid-step, a thick vine snaring his ankle and dragging him screaming into the undergrowth. Cut him loose! Vec roared, his plasma blade igniting. The soldiers fired wildly into the jungle, their weapons illuminating the chaos. Krell managed to sever the vine, but by then the soldier was gone, leaving only blood-streaked soil behind. We're not fighting a jungle, Krell said, his voice tight. We're fighting something that knows us. High above, concealed in the dense canopy, Iris Kane observed the chaos through a pair of binoculars. The alien soldiers were more persistent than she'd anticipated, but their arrogance had left them unprepared for Earth's retribution. Her communicator crackled softly. Dr. Kane, Phase 2 is complete. Awaiting next instructions. She smiled faintly, her fingers brushing the bark of the tree she clung to. Good. Phase 3 begins now. Guide them toward the ridge. The response was a simple, understood. Iris's attention returned to the scene below. Her traps had served their purpose, but she needed to push the invaders further into the jungle's heart. That was where the real fight would begin. Back on the ground, Vex's patience was wearing thin. His troops were visibly shaken, their once crisp formation now a loose, defensive cluster. "We need to regroup and reevaluate," Krell suggested, his tone cautious. "No." Vec's tone was cold, final. "We press on. Whatever controls this jungle is close, and I intend to destroy it." The squad resumed their march, their movements tense and wary. The jungle seemed to taunt them, its sounds and shadows playing tricks on their senses. Overhead, massive leaves shifted, revealing glimpses of movement too quick to identify. "Commander," one soldier whispered, "I think we're being watched." "You think?" Vec spat. "Keep moving." The squad pushed through thick undergrowth until they reached a narrow ridge overlooking a mist-shrouded valley. The view was breathtaking yet foreboding. Massive trees stretched endlessly, their tops lost in the fog. Strange, bioluminescent plants glowed faintly, casting an eerie light. "This is where it ends," Vec declared. "Krell, deploy the drones." Krell hesitated but complied, releasing a swarm of surveillance drones into the valley. The small, insect-like machines darted through the air, their sensors scanning for movement. "Let's see what your jungle is hiding," Vec muttered. The drones relayed their data back to the squad's holoscreen. At first, the images showed nothing but trees and underbrush. Then, one by one, the drones' feeds went dark. "They're being taken out," Krell said, his voice rising in alarm. Before Vec could respond, the jungle erupted around them. From the shadows, a pack of predatory creatures emerged, sleek, four-legged beasts with glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws. They moved with terrifying coordination, circling the squad like wolves around a wounded prey. "Fire at will!" Vec shouted, his weapon roaring to life. The soldiers fought desperately, their plasma bolts tearing through the creatures. But for every beast they killed, two more seemed to take its place. The aliens' superior technology was proving no match for the jungle's relentless assault. Amid the chaos, Krell spotted something unusual. One of the creatures hesitated, its glowing eyes fixed on something unseen. It didn't attack. Instead, it backed away, retreating into the shadows. "Kane," Krell whispered under his breath. "What did you say?" Vec demanded, cutting down a creature that lunged for his throat. "I think there's a human controlling them," Krell said. "I saw one of those things hesitate, like it was waiting for orders." Vec's eyes narrowed. "Good. If there's a human, we'll find them and end this madness." But the jungle had other plans. Without warning, massive pods hanging from the trees burst open, releasing clouds of spores. The air filled with a shimmering haze that clung to the soldiers' armor, corroding it with alarming speed. "Fall back!" Krell yelled, but their retreat was cut off by a wall of vines that sprang up behind them. Above, Iris activated her communicator. "Phase 3 is a success. Pull back and let the jungle finish them." Her small team of resistance fighters acknowledged, retreating silently through the canopy. They had done their job, now it was up to the jungle. On the ridge, the squad was in complete disarray. Soldiers clawed at their armor as the spores ate through it, their screams filling the air. Vec stood in the center of the chaos, his plasma blade cutting through vines and creatures alike. "Krell!" he roared. "Find me that human!" But Krell was nowhere to be found. In the chaos, he had slipped away, his mind racing. If there really was a human orchestrating this, they held the key to survival, and Krell intended to find them before it was too late. As the jungle closed in, Vec's defiance remained unbroken, but for the first time, doubt crept into his expression. This was no mere wilderness. This was a war, and the jungle was winning. Commander Vectelos stood amidst the carnage, the remnants of his squad scattered like broken dolls. His once imposing armor was battered, the gleam dulled by layers of ash and spore. The jungle around him pulsed with life, the shadows moving in ways that defied reason. He clenched his plasma blade tighter, the weapon's glow a defiant beacon against the encroaching darkness. He turned sharply, his voice cutting through the humid air. "Krell! Report!" No response came. The lieutenant had vanished during the chaos, leaving Vec to fight alone. Fury bubbled within him, but it was tempered by the grim reality that he was no longer leading, he was surviving. Above him, Iris Kane watched from the canopy, her sharp eyes tracking his movements. She had seen warriors like him before, proud, unyielding, and blind to their limitations. Still, she respected his resilience. Few had made it this far into the jungle alive. Status? Iris murmured into her communicator. A soft reply crackled in her ear. All units accounted for. Hostiles are contained, except for one. Iris smirked. Leave him. Let's see how far he can go. Below, Vec pushed forward, his every step an act of defiance against the jungle's relentless assault. He knew he was being hunted, but he also knew that hunters made mistakes. He would exploit any weakness, no matter how small. As he advanced, the jungle's noises shifted, the usual hum of insects and distant calls replaced by an eerie silence. The change wasn't comforting, it was deliberate. He could feel the unseen eyes on him, the oppressive weight of an enemy too vast to comprehend. A flicker of movement caught his attention. He whirled, firing his plasma rifle into the shadows. The blast illuminated the underbrush for a moment, revealing nothing but empty foliage. Cowards! He spat, his voice a growl. Cowardice is survival! Came a voice from nowhere and everywhere at once. Vec froze. The voice was human, calm, almost mocking. It resonated through the jungle, amplified by some unseen system. Show yourself! Vec roared, his plasma blade humming as he slashed at a nearby vine. I'm everywhere, Commander, the voice replied. And you? You're just another invader. Another arrogant fool who thought they could tame what they don't understand. Your tricks won't save you. Vec growled, his eyes scanning the shadows. They already have, the voice said. High above, Iris leaned against a tree trunk, watching as Vec moved deeper into the jungle. Her traps had pushed him exactly where she wanted, into the heart of the valley, where the jungle's oldest and deadliest guardians awaited. She switched frequencies on her communicator. Activate the drones. Heard him toward the nexus point. Yes, Dr. Kane, came the reply. Moments later, a swarm of insect-like drones emerged from the trees, their mechanical wings humming. They circled Vec like vultures, darting in and out of his range, forcing him to retreat step by step. Vec lashed out, his blades slicing through several drones, but they were relentless, each loss replaced by another. He fired his plasma rifle, his shots precise yet desperate. The jungle seemed to close in, funneling him toward a narrow ravine. Realizing the trap, he stopped, his chest heaving as he scanned his surroundings. The voice returned, softer now, almost pitying. Do you see it yet, Commander? The futility? You came here to conquer, but all you've done is awaken something you can't control. I don't fear you. Vec snarled. Good, the voice replied. Fear isn't useful. But respect? That might save your life. The ground beneath him trembled, a low rumble that grew steadily louder. Vec braced himself, his eyes darting toward the source. From the ravine, a massive figure emerged, a creature unlike anything he had faced. It stood on 4 powerful legs, its scaled body covered in moss and vines. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its gnarled horns crackled with bioelectric energy. The beast let out a guttural roar that shook the canopy, its breath misting in the humid air. Vec gripped his blade tightly, his instincts screaming at him to run. But he didn't run. He charged. His plasma blade struck the beast's flank, searing through its thick hide. The creature roared in pain, swiping at him with claws the size of scythes. Vec dodged, his movements precise despite his exhaustion. From her perch, Iris watched, a flicker of admiration crossing her face. He's stubborn. I'll give him that. The fight was brutal, the air thick with the sounds of battle. Vec's strikes were relentless, each one carving into the beast's flesh. But for every wound he inflicted, the creature fought back with equal ferocity. Finally, Vec saw an opening. He leapt onto the beast's back, driving his blade into its neck. The creature howled, thrashing wildly, but Vec held firm, twisting the blade deeper. The beast collapsed, its massive body shaking the ground as it fell. Vec rolled clear, landing in a crouch, his chest heaving. He barely had time to recover before the voice returned, sharper now. Impressive. But you've only defeated one guardian. The jungle doesn't forgive so easily. The foliage ahead parted, and Iris stepped into view. She was clad in a camouflage suit, her features sharp and determined. She held no weapon, only a faint smile. Vec raised his blade, his eyes narrowing. You're the one behind this. I'm the one protecting it, Iris replied. And now you're out of time. Before Vec could react, the ground beneath him gave way. He fell into darkness, the jungle swallowing him whole. Iris stood at the edge of the pit, her expression unreadable. The jungle decides who lives, she said softly, and who becomes part of it. She turned and vanished into the shadows, leaving the jungle to finish what it had started.